Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we are going to discuss the Mercury Retrograde in Libra energies as they are unfolding from September 26th until October 18th, 2021. Mercury is the messenger planet associated with communications, information, how we think and perceive and process the world around us. And when we have this perception of Mercury moving in reverse, it gives an opportunity for us to catch up, to slow down, to review, reassess, reconsider, and reprioritize. And as Mercury goes retrograde multiple times a year, this is when we have opportunities to get caught up on anything that we need more time for. Perhaps there's something that you're working on and you realize this is going to take longer than I thought. Or maybe there is something you've been moving through and you just need some more time and space to sit with it, reconsider, and think about it. Those are some of the gifts of the Mercury retrograde energies. And when we have a Mercury retrograde, we are being supported with greater opportunities for mindfulness, for not moving too fast, or not making a quick decision or thinking things through to the point of exhaustion. The Mercury retrograde can support you as well in gaining greater clarity and certainty about what is true for you and where your mind is going. It can show you where you've been spinning in something or perhaps overthinking. And what I feel is really strong at this time is that Mercury retrograde is a gift. It's a gift of allowing us to be more conscious and mindful of our mental energies and to slow down and really consider, is this what I want to focus on? Is this where I want to direct my energy? Is this serving me? So in this current Mercury retrograde cycle, it is moving from 25 degrees of Libra back to 10 degrees of Libra. So it's going to cover this territory in your natal astrology chart. And in Libra, it brings up our interactions with other people. Now, typically we think of Libra as partnerships and relationships, and that's very true. It's more specifically one-on-one relationships that can be about anyone you interact with on a one-on-one basis. So this can be your colleagues, customers, clients, co-workers. This can be a family member. This can be a spouse, a partner, a lover. This can be a friend. Again, any person in your life. But what it highlights is Mercury in Libra is good at understanding another's perspective, the other side of a story, at understanding how someone is going to perceive things differently than you, and how that can in fact be very interesting and spark some good conversations. Mercury in general does well in the air signs as it is a cerebral energy. And here in Libra, it's about what we're saying to other people, the communications and conversations we're having, our ability to listen to a viewpoint or perspective that is very different from your own, the ability to keep asking insightful questions, to be aware of all the ways that we can individually come to our own conclusions, but it's not to shut down connections. Instead, it's meant to keep those connections alive. So here we have opportunities to assess and look at where your communications can be improved. Perhaps there is something in your throat chakra energy that is ready to be opened up or moved to a higher expression. If you've been holding back anything you need to say or share, this is a Mercury retrograde that can support you in what is true for you. Now, one of the things that Mercury in Libra desires is harmony, collaboration, cooperation. Let's get on the same page with this project, or let's figure out this issue together, or how are we going to move through this? So because it's about connecting with energies outside of yourself, there is a focus on how you do that, how you interact, how you're able to work with others for a common goal, or even for peace, harmony, cooperation. These are all Libra words where there is a desire for that win-win outcome, or at least moving something forward where there is a win for both people. And this is where we can learn more about negotiation and communication skills. This Mercury retrograde in Libra energy is a wonderful time to ask clarifying questions if you don't understand something or if you're looking for more information from someone. And this can be beneficial in all types of relationships. Even as simple as someone says a certain word or a certain phrase and you take it in and you think about it and maybe you're confused or you don't really know what they mean or what they're getting at, then you'd want to ask follow-up questions that are like, hey, I didn't quite grasp exactly what you meant by XYZ. Can you explain that a little more? This is also where you want to ask additional questions to get more information if you don't feel like you understand the full story. And I'm sharing these examples because these are the types of things that we can take for granted. This is where misunderstandings happen, where it could even be that someone doesn't reveal or share the full story simply because they didn't think about certain details or other components that might be necessary. So we can look at what we've taken for granted that we haven't explained very well. And this would be a good time to stay open to where you can make improvements in that part of yourself and in your relationships. So again, this energy is about keeping a conversation going or keeping things open so that it's okay to ask follow-up questions. It's okay to come back around if you need more information, if you're looking for a new solution or another option. This can be more obvious even in the workplace, where if something's been decided or there is a project or something underway and you're looking to understand the bigger picture, this is where you would ask those pointed, clarifying questions. And this Mercury retrograde is going to help us improve our communications with other people. You may notice where you are ready to explain something more or provide more examples, more details, more stories. There is energy here around how you communicate with others is very, very important, but it can also be improved, especially through the ongoing back and forth and really getting on the same page. So know that it could be a little bit challenging if you're more impatient. If you are someone who doesn't want to do the back and forth as much, or if you just want to know something, make a decision and move on, this could be a Mercury retrograde where you're being asked to pace yourself with the other person's energy. And that could be uncomfortable or it could be really easy. But this is where we're looking at how our ability to communicate really impacts relationships and is very important. Now, I want to go deeper into this particular Mercury retrograde in Libra because it has more of an intensity to it than a normal Mercury retrograde. And that's because Mercury is interacting with 3 outer planets multiple times. Mercury is interacting with Chiron in Aries, retrograde, Jupiter in Aquarius, and Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. Now, Jupiter is retrograde for a bit during this Mercury retrograde, but I'm going to take you through a timeline of energies here, as well as describe the bigger overarching themes so that you can help pinpoint perhaps more of what is coming up for you as we move into October and November. Now, Mercury entered his retrograde shadow September 7th and 8th, and that's when there was the first opposition to Chiron. Then Mercury stationed retrograde at 25 degrees of Libra on September 26th, squaring Pluto. Mercury then moves retrograde back to 10 degrees of Libra until October 18th and 19th, where it stations direct the same day that Jupiter stations direct at 22 degrees of Aquarius. And as it moves back to that 10-degree point, it's also at an opposition to Chiron again. Then Mercury will clear a shadow at 25 degrees of Libra on November 3rd and 4th. And as it clears its shadow, it makes a final square to Pluto, which is then direct at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So that's the astrology that I know many of you are interested in. But here's the energy. This is what is being opened up for us to look at. Because there is an ongoing square to Pluto, there is intensity with this Mercury retrograde that triggers a part of your soul energy, your emotional imprint around relationships, and any dynamics for you that have felt powerless, traumatic, abusive, perhaps very emotional. It's been related to a lot of fear. Anything that essentially is triggering a bigger karmic energy that you're meant to see now, but because Mercury is a messenger, you're meant to create a new narrative. This is a Mercury retrograde where you're creating a new narrative around any relationship habits, patterns, karmic loops, anything that maybe you even felt stuck in across multiple lifetimes. This is where you're meant to be not only in the story, but the storyteller who's the observer and who is flipping the script so that whatever was damaging, painful, harmful, maybe even it felt destructive, traumatic, these very deep energies which are associated with Pluto, they're going to be brought to your awareness in some form or another so that you can harness that energy, work through it, and create a new narrative for yourself around how you show up and communicate in relationships, but also there's a deeper reprogramming here around what it has felt like to be in your sense of self and the openness of who you are with your own truth and authenticity. This relationship energy strongly correlates to family dynamics. Pluto in Capricorn is about authority figures, and our first authority figures in life are often our parents. Now, for you, this could have been your first boss or a teacher or someone you looked up to. Capricorn are the energies that we look up to, we admire. We're like, wow, look at what they've accomplished. Look at who they are in the world. Look at what they've done. But the unconscious energy here is that we look up to our parents first. And so Capricorn can be associated with either parent that you looked up to. And it could be the parent in your family dynamic who had more power or authority, who was more in control of the household, who ran the show. So Capricorn is the energy of someone you look up to, whether that was a maternal figure or paternal. And what you're looking at is what parts of yourself were you not fully able to share, describe, offer, be, and essentially embrace because you didn't feel like it would be accepted or loved. And this energy, I feel like it has this very interesting energy trail across lifetimes because we've been working with this Pluto and Capricorn energy for a while now. So here comes this Mercury retrograde in Libra that brings up the unconscious programming we've been living. And it's only until we reach a certain level of consciousness that we realize how it's been playing out or what's been spinning in our heads or how we've told ourselves certain things that may or may not still resonate, that may or may not be true. And this is where we have an opportunity to rewrite the script, to change the narrative so that you're in a place of equilibrium and harmony within yourself around anything that you assumed was a truth or you assumed was true about you because of experiences or situations you've had either when you were younger or across multiple lifetimes or both. This is where there's so many possibilities. So you decide, what resonates for you. But what I'm seeing here are a few things. First of all, when a planet, especially a personal planet like Mercury, squares Pluto, there is a power dynamic, and it can feel like Pluto is powerful and that personal planet is not. It feels powerless. There's a tension. There's a sense of this one energy or something outside of you has a lot of control, or it brings up some big fear, or it brings up a powerlessness. It brings up something that triggers you, and then it creates a story that you've bought into or that you've believed. And this can be truth, meaning it's not like the story or the experiences are false, but there's something here that you can see from another perspective. And Mercury and Libra can provide that objectivity, can say, well, actually, have you considered it this way? Have you thought of it from this perspective where you're standing further away from the dynamic and you could see it through this lens instead of it feeling personal, intense, emotional? Now, I'm being pretty general as I trust that as I'm describing these themes and energies, something will resonate with you, and just trust whatever comes up, especially if it's a pattern, habit, or loop that's been operating for you within relationships. And it could be through another person that you get triggered in a significant way during this Mercury retrograde. But what the universe, God, source, spirit, whatever you call it, is actually directing you towards is not simply about this present moment in time, but it's about that energy trail. It's about where does this lead when you go deeper into it, which is the Pluto energy. Where does this take you? Where are you seeing this as a reoccurring pattern in your life, or something that you've never really looked at and seen from a different perspective? And because this Mercury is sitting in a square with Pluto for nearly 2 weeks, there's energy here that you're already feeling or sensing that is, again, that message. What is this story? What is this information? What have I told myself that I'm ready to reprogram and rework? So here's an example. If you have felt a certain level of powerlessness in certain relationships, again, maybe that's with a parent, an authority figure, someone else, you can rewrite the script and tell yourself, they don't have any of my power. I have my power. I thought they were more powerful when I was younger, and I am going to look at that and rewrite that, reclaim it, and switch the energy. This can also be true around confidence. If you're not feeling confident or having the perception that others are more confident than you and going into the comparison, which is another lower expression of Libra, if you're in a place of comparison, then what you're being asked to do is reclaim your confidence in your energy that has nothing to do with anyone else, nothing to do with comparison, where you're developing greater confidence in the best in you and who you are, in your strengths, in your abilities, and you're essentially sourcing that from within. Now, comparison is an interesting theme because that is, again, a Libra energy. It can also be a Scorpio energy where you're comparing your energy to another. There can be this unconscious list of pros and cons. An assessment is happening. Since we also have the Sun and Mars in Libra as well, that does bring in the energy of strength and courage in the Libra areas of your chart that are helping you see your own light, see your own goodness, see what you bring forward or who you are in connections to other people that is valuable, worthy, important. So there are things here that can be reworked, and part of this energy is being very honest with yourself, almost to the point of where you didn't want to admit something to yourself. This could be a Mercury retrograde where you are ready to be very clear and honest about who you are and how you have shown up in relationships as well. And it could be something like, oh, well, I'm always the first person to leave or break up or abandon or end the relationship so that another person doesn't do the same to me. And you could say, oh, well, that would have been something that I did to avoid rejection, avoid abandonment. It's a self-protective pattern. And if that's the case, then there would be opportunities to go into that and look at that theme, because it could have traveled with you for multiple lifetimes. It could be related to something deep in your heart that needs more healing, love, acceptance, energy work. There could be themes here where you're seeing your relationship patterns and you're able to look yourself in the mirror and be very honest. And that kind of mirror work and that ability to reflect back on yourself is also Libra, because when that is unconscious, then we can project it out onto others and we can project it into situations instead of claiming it, instead of owning it. So there's an opportunity here to fully own your own relationship habits in a way that is compassionate, accepting, and also elevates your consciousness, where you can see what has been coming around for you again and again. And as they say, if you're in a repeating pattern and you are the common denominator in every situation, well, then you are probably the source of that experience, and that's where you also have your power. The power to shift or change, the power to evolve, to heal something in your heart that maybe you weren't aware of or you were out of touch with. Maybe it's been too scary to look at some things. Maybe it's almost like I don't want to look at that because I'm afraid of what I might discover. But there is strength and courage here to do so. In fact, with the Sun and Mars traveling together in Libra, they are strong masculine energies. There is a strong masculine energy, in fact, throughout October, which gives us the courage to really be clear about who we are in our interactions with other people. It brings in a sense of, I'm ready for this. I can see this now. I have an understanding perhaps of what I've experienced. Again, this can be friendships. This can be family members. And in families, we typically have a lot of soul group energies where we choose to incarnate with certain family members and people because they will trigger our healing themes. They will bring up what we're ready to see in relationships, especially after the first Saturn return. And the first Saturn return is between 28 and 30 years of age, where you're fully an adult, you're fully formed, you've lived some decades, you've got some skin in the game here in this world, and there's a sense of understanding more of who you are. And that's where we then become more aware of ourselves in the world, especially through our commitments, our work, family, obligations, things that we have to take care of and we're responsible for. This is also where there is a maturity around what life means to you. And so I feel like what this Mercury retrograde is bringing up is a sense of maybe what you were taught about relationships at a younger age, even how they were demonstrated to you within a family dynamic, such as between your parents or aunts and uncles, grandparents, maybe even an older sibling who got married first. I mean, there's all these things that we're observing in the huge spectrum of relationships, and we don't always sit and think about it or really reflect on, is this true for me? Is this how I want to show up in relationships? Is this how I want to connect with another? I feel like this Mercury retrograde is big with these themes because not only is it the square to Pluto, as I mentioned, but there's also the trines to Jupiter at 22 degrees of Aquarius that is moving very slowly. And this Jupiter in Aquarius is connecting you to your future potentials, future timelines, what you want going forward. It's about the new directions, the higher path, and it's even bringing in new possibilities that we weren't able to connect with before. So as this Pluto energy is working with us to reframe and rewrite certain narratives, the Jupiter in Aquarius energy is showing us what's possible and opening us up to new potentials when we shift and grow. And this growth is related to your own authentic self, which is part of the Aquarius energy. It's based on knowing who you are, knowing what works for you, how your energy operates, how your energy connects with other people. And that Jupiter in Aquarius brings it alive, amplifies it, and shows you that there are so many people in this world, literally over 7 billion, that there are ways to create and form relationships that are healthy, conscious, grounded, loving, accepting, compassionate, kind, and that if you put yourself in that belief system, meaning that's really the only kinds of interactions you want, that's what you are then in frequency with. And that's where more will open up. More will open up. So this is significant because there's going to be some aha moments, some moments of clarity, some times when maybe it's even through an interaction with somebody and it feels uncomfortable, a little sticky, or something just not working. And it could bring you an insight into something else that you're ready to shift or change. I feel like this energy has a lot of downloads. By downloads, I mean intuitive messages and guidance coming in, like that sense of, oh, I know what this is about, or oh, I see it now. And that's because this energy is not new. We've already been working through this stuff. And I'm specifically referencing the transiting energies of Pluto and Capricorn at 24 degrees, where it started in February 2020, so nearly a year and a half ago. And now we have a Mercury retrograde that's bringing up maybe even some smaller things to your awareness. I'm seeing the energy as something you're already aware of at some level of consciousness, at some level of your being. I do feel like some people don't want to look at this and they've pushed it away, sort of like, I'll just move that over to the back of the closet. And then the universe could come back and say, well, actually, now it's time to unpack this. We're taking this out of the back of the closet, and this is what you need to look at right now during this Mercury retrograde in Libra, is what you have unconsciously experienced in relationships, especially communication styles, and where you're ready to evolve and grow into a higher expression. If you have planets or points between 22 and 25 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, this energy is going to be very intense for you. You're going to feel it more personally. It's going to be something you're working with in a much deeper way. Whereas if you do not have any planets or points between 22 and 25 degrees of the cardinal signs, then it isn't as intense for you. So this information, for example, is very general that I'm giving, and it might not be something that you're working through as personally, but you might sense it and observe it and feel it in your own life at some capacity. So the end of September into the first week of October, there could be something that comes up that is bigger than you thought. It's leading you to something even more than you realize. I'm getting that image of when you're trying to pull out a weed and you think, oh, it's just a little weed, I'll just yank it. And it turns out it has this huge root system that you didn't realize was there. It's a bit like that. You think, oh, this will be simple, I'll just yank this out. But it leads you to more information, more understanding, and can actually open you up to exactly what you're ready to understand in yourself right now. Then as we see Mercury venture retrograde back to 10 degrees, it will make an opposition to Chiron in Aries retrograde from about October 16th until October 19th. And when we have this opposition to Chiron in Aries, there's something that could be sensitive or an insecurity comes up, or something comes through that at first could feel very personal. It could feel like it triggers something, but it's meant to show you exactly what you're ready to heal. And it's a bit like touching a sensitive spot that's been injured. So let's say on your arm, you have a scar. Okay, in fact, I have that. I have a scar on my arm because when I was younger, I was a huge tomboy and I was doing silly things with boys, and I ran my bicycle into the mailboxes. I got a huge scar on my arm, stitches, the whole thing, and then it became a sensitive spot. So you have something that was an injury previously, and it takes time to heal, but it still can be a little bit sensitive until it's fully healed. And of course, this could just be an energy, right? Where you have a sensitive spot or something that is painful for you when someone touches it. And then the understanding is, how do I heal this? How do I improve this? And similar to when you get stitches, over time, the stitches are supporting the healing process, but it takes time. And then maybe the stitches dissolve or you have to pull them out, whatever. But the understanding is then it takes time for that skin to repair itself. And it can leave a permanent scar. This could be some time when that scar, that sensitive spot is touched, or someone is kind of rubbing you the wrong way, or something comes up. But you're not meant to give all your energy to the pain of the injury or to the memory of that vulnerability or the memory of that pain. Especially when you're sensitive, empathic, intuitive, you can go right back to some painful things and it can feel alive before you even know it. You could be almost like crossing timelines or crossing energies, and all of a sudden, you're in that exact moment when you crashed into the mailboxes and there's blood and all the things, and you're like in it, because that's part of being sensitive and part of being intuitive and empathic is that you can tap into almost any kind of energy instantly. This Mercury retrograde is asking you to look at how you tap into that pain, that injury, but then how you can step away from it as well and be objective, look at it from a different angle, look at it from a different viewpoint, and not go into the pain. And that's how you can practice being in balance. So there can be really good, productive energy work that shows you where your energy is going and how to manage it better. And this can be a conversation you have with yourself where, okay, wow, I went right into that pain of that situation. I remember exactly what happened. I remember that moment. I remember it all. It becomes alive, but it's not my current reality. It's not energy I have to sit in and absorb right now. I don't have to relive the experience. I can step away and see it from a different perspective, a different angle. So there will be opportunities to understand what you've been through, especially anything painful, difficult, traumatic, and how you are able to distance yourself energetically and be objective and understand what was the best that came from this situation. What did I learn from this experience? What did I see, maybe between your parents, maybe between others around you, that you know you don't want to experience in relationships anymore? Or what have you experienced in your own relationships? Again, friendships, siblings, coworkers, any of the people in our life. What is essential to you that you require? And it's similar to having standards. Having standards that are your energetic standards, your baseline requirements, the things that you don't compromise on and you don't give away. This is why this Mercury retrograde is particularly important, because it's going to give us opportunities to reassess where our energy goes in relationships, whether it's about the past, whether it's about an ongoing theme or habit or pattern that you've always had that is no longer working for you, and at some level of your being you know it, And this is also where you're probably understanding a deeper truth around yourself and whether or not it's still energy that you want in your life, or if it's shifted, or if it's changed permanently. I feel like because this energy is not new, because we've been working with it, it's something new maybe coming up, or maybe it's coming back around. But I feel like once you get it or you see it, then the energy changes quickly. I think that's part of where this Jupiter in Aquarius is supporting us in moving forward and in being alignment with what's true on your path and what's best for your soul growth. There's opportunities to really change a trajectory, to see something in a higher light, to understand deeper soul growth potentials. It does feel that big. And again, you're going to feel it more if you have planets or points between 22 and 25 degrees, because that's where Jupiter and Pluto are, and that's where the big shifts are happening. And then the energy at 10 degrees of Libra and Aries is where we're understanding what has formed us, what has maybe been debilitating us, and where we've been holding back on being really who you are with everyone in your life. So again, this is very general. Only assess and take what is resonating with you. But there are different pieces of it here that are helping us understand where we have opportunities to see something differently, to view it differently. And all of that helps with rewriting the story and changing the narrative around what happened. And even my bike accident, it wasn't like I just drove into a bike. No, we were doing this really awesome, fun obstacle where you had to go at the top of the hill and make this tight turn and make this other tight turn and go down another hill and make another turn. It was like this crazy track through the neighborhood. And I didn't make the last turn, but it was still amazing. So there's something about when we have an injury or when something happens that's painful, it can shut down the other parts of the experience. And I feel like this is where it's opening back up to a fuller experience. Almost like before the injury happened, before the scar, before the pain, before the regret, before the abandonment. It's like taking yourself back to a fresh energy. And I know it can be described as we have soul fragmentation, or perhaps it's soul retrieval. It's reclaiming parts of yourself that other people maybe have impacted, or there's been interference. So the trauma can come up. Or again, that sense of where your energy was, I'm going to say taken from you, although that's something that we do unconsciously, and then it's claiming it back. So there's definitely bigger energies going on than simply a little boring Mercury retrograde where you can't find your favorite pen. There's bigger things happening here, and when we work with it, we really get some amazing results and benefits and growth. So that's why I wanted to share this topic and go into it a bit more, so that if you're really triggered, this is where you can say, oh good, I'm going to understand something now. I'm going to go into something deeper. This is an opportunity for me to see something I didn't see before, and it's going to help you reframe it and really tap into more of your own truth, your own power, and your more understanding of who you are. To summarize it all up, this would be a wonderful time to look at what new version of a story you can create and see from a higher perspective, a loving perspective, an acceptance place. And that is how you can then see even more of what you're growing through and learning at this time. So I hope this information is beneficial and resonates with you and anything that may come up during this Mercury retrograde in Libra phase. It is in effect until October 18th or 19th, depends on your location on the planet. And at the same time that Mercury stations direct, Jupiter stations direct as well. And that's where you can really feel an energy shift. You could feel clarity, understanding. I see it now, and I'm ready to change it. I'm ready to work with this information in a new light and in a higher way. Now, I did just release the October monthly soul growth astrology program, which you can get now on my website. And if you use coupon code Libra, it's only $11 for all 4 webinars, where I cover all of the astrology of October, including the Libra new moon, the Aries full moon, and we take a look at more of the specifics of the transiting personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. I will put the link below this podcast episode, so please check that out, as it's designed for you to follow along with your natal chart and look at how the energies are going to be working with you more personally. As always, thank you so much for joining me for today's podcast episode. I'll be back every Wednesday and Monday for a new episode. And please check out my YouTube channel, where you'll find a lot more astrology in my playlists, as well as more specifics around various energies that we are experiencing here as we close out this year and move into 2022. Oh, and as I mentioned on last Wednesday's show, I did just release the 2022 Soul Growth Astrology Program, which is all the big astrology of 2022, including the 4 eclipses, the 4 Mercury retrogrades, Venus retrograde, Mars retrograde, and then the new energies that are opening up as we move into another year. So you can find all of that over at mollymccord.online. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish you a beautiful day ahead, and I hope that this Mercury retrograde brings you a lot of beautiful insights and new wisdom. Take good care.